Hey everybody, officially, and welcome to another live art stream. So today I'm going to be working in Krita again to do some tree concept designs. Long story short, working on this new game. If you were at the other streams, you may have seen some of the work that went into that. And I was doing some background design for the game. And the backgrounds are just pretty scarce right now. They're just sparse. They're sparse and they're just hills, and they're nice hills and some pretty clouds. But I thought maybe having some trees littered through the background might jazz things up a little bit. So today I'm just going to be working on some tree design and just going to go through kind of like we did with the landscapes last stream. I'm going to just do a bunch of different concepts and then tweak a few of them and see what happens, and then later on we'll plug them into the background and see what it looks like. So I'm going to turn off my webcam while I'm drawing, which is one of these buttons over here. That's the one. And then we'll get started. So to start, I'm going to just draw a basic tree, just out of my head. Kind of the base elements of a tree are the leaf part of the tree and then some sort of trunk part of the tree. And I just want that so that I can get what would happen if I did nothing else. It would look probably something like that. Also, I should probably say I'm doing carnivorous trees instead of deciduous trees. Is that right? Or is that the cloud? Anyway, whatever the trees that die in the winter are, I'm going to be working on those. And then later on, I might do some pine trees or something of that nature. But for now, we're just going to go with good old-fashioned, not pine trees. So in another window, I have opened just a Google image search for cool trees. And I'm just going to kind of look at them in case I need any inspiration or anything. But to start, I'm not going with any sort of particular style. I'm just trying some different things and seeing what happens. And just kind of go from there. So the first tree would be that one. And if I wanted to jazz it up, I could probably put in some different shapes around it. So we'll just do that and make it slightly more interesting of a tree. And I don't know how detailed or non I want the background, to be honest, because I haven't super decided the final style of the game. Maybe the trees themselves will help me to figure that out. But I can at least start to figure that out. All right, so if we let's just mess with this tree. A bunch of times and see what happens. Move. All right. So if we took this tree and we changed the bottom, maybe we could do something like, oops, lost my opacity. Maybe we could do something with some different branches and shapes. I must admit I'm not a tree drawing expert, and I should have probably done some more referencing before I just jumped in and started, but I figured mostly I'm just doing shapes right now and seeing what happens, and then go from there. Also, oh, hello everybody. There's some folks in the chat. I was just about to say, because I didn't look over there. If anybody is in the chat and you want to say anything, feel free, and I will look over every once in a while. There's about a 10-second delay, I guess, maybe, between when I see it and when I talk about it. So if I don't answer you right away, that's why. All right, so continue to try random shapes at the bottom. Probably want to keep it curvy and things because otherwise it's rather dull. A wide-based tree. I don't like that, but that's fine, whatever. So, so Dev Dev Editor, says, what kind of game is this for? So I don't have all the details of the game just yet on exactly what it's going to be like because we're such in an early design stage that I hate to commit to one thing. But at the moment, it's going to probably, if nothing dramatically changes, be a sort of physics-based puzzle game. But the art style and the look of it is very side-scrollery because it'll take place in like a side-scroller looking levels, but there'll be physics-based puzzles in there. So, for example, you're going to have like little platforms and things. This is just a sample screenshot. And then you'll have a little character and stuff. So all the stuff will happen and the physics-based puzzle stuff will take place. And I have general designs going on for, if you watched the previous stream, then I worked on the platform designs. And then off camera, I worked a little bit on background design. And the reason I did that off camera was because I'm terrible at background design. And so I didn't want to embarrass myself completely. Ninsage says, fourth person shooter? Yes, that's pretty much exactly it. It's a fourth person shooter now. So for those of you who don't know, Weekend Panda, which is the development studio that I started with my wife, is my wife and I. And so my wife has explicitly said that she will never make a shooter because she hates them, mostly because they make her super dizzy. And I said, why don't we work on making a shooter that doesn't make you super dizzy? And she said, no. So, probably not a fourth person shooter. Although that would be interesting, being in fourth. I'm not sure what that entails. I know first and second and third, but I'm not sure what fourth person shooter would do. Okay, so I'm saving this because I didn't save yet, and that's always a good thing to do. Where am I saving it? Is this professional work or for fun? Is the question. This is professional work officially now. It's exciting. This will be a fully developed and released game that will come along, gosh, I don't know when. I'm hoping that we'll be wrapping this game up by the end of May or sometime in June, but I can't promise that, so because you just never know with development. Somebody also in chat says, fourth person shooter is a game where you watch someone who's playing a third person shooter. I gotcha. Well, that could be an interesting game. I think that's called Twitch, though. We already have that, so. But anyway, so as far as personal or professional work, this is professional work for our studio, which means it has to be good. I can't just get by on whatever. Give me a second. I need to type in a file name, and I need to actually think about it a second. Trees. That's what it is. I can't talk and type at the same time. It's just beyond me. All right. So these are just early concepts. What we will do is then shrink these down because I just saved the file, so I don't have to worry about it. I'll put those in the corner and then keep going. New layer. Find the pen. Yeah, so this will be for that officially released game. All right, so we got a generally round shape. What if we do, why don't we do some concepts in different shapes? So we'll do this shape, and we'll do maybe this kind of a shape, and maybe we'll put in a square shape for fun. So let's do variations on these and see how it goes. I'll start with our oval. All right. So to continue rambling while I'm drawing, since that's more interesting than just watching drawing by itself, our first game, which is called The Death of Mr. Fishy, is it was originally designed as part of Ludum Dare, which is a game jam, if you don't know it. Essentially, you have a weekend to make a game from scratch, and they don't give you the theme until that Friday night, and then you have to make a game after that. That's not what I want to do. So our first game, The Death of Mr. Fishy, originally started out as a Ludum Dare game called Mr. Fishy's Small World. and we released this super buggy little prototype game that was not, uh, it barely functioned, but it ended up scoring in the top 10 of the whole competition in humor. So people seem to really like it. And, oh, dev editor's working on a game jam right now. Cool beans. Which game jam are you doing now? So so we did this like little prototype thing, and people seemed to really like it, other than the fact that it was super buggy. So we just took it back to the drawing board, and I redesigned a lot of it, but a lot of the art aspects I kept, I just redid so that they were better. Long story short, the point of this story, the whole thing, is I basically designed the look of that game on a 3-day deadline. And the beautiful thing about that is that I had no choice but to leave it be. With this game, I have more freedom because I don't have a 3-day deadline, and as a result, I'm probably spending far too long on like backgrounds and things, because to be honest with you, if you go play like a side scroller, you're probably not looking at the background very often. You might every once in a while, especially if it's like Rayman Legends or something and the background is amazing looking, but for the most part, people aren't paying that much attention to the background. So I'm probably putting a little more effort into this part than I should, and I should just get on with designing the actual game and making it playable. But because my wife is on the software side, she can make it playable while I draw pictures. So it works. Just a private one. You're working on a private game jam. Well, that's exciting. I've never been a part of a private game jam before, but that would be pretty cool. What's your deadline on it? Like, you doing it over a week or just a couple days? It's neat because some game jams last a while, a while being like a week or so. But some I've seen like 24-hour game jams. I don't even know how you make something in 24 hours, to be honest with you. That seems almost unreasonable to me, but hey, if you can do it, then you go for it. So again, I'm just kind of messing around and seeing if there's any particular concepts for trees that I like. Dev says that his private game jam is 1 week. Nice. Are you working in teams, or are you solo on this jam? I've only ever done it alongside my wife. I don't know how. I'm not a coder or programmer in any way. Even I struggle with like Unity, which is supposed to help you with that stuff. But I can't imagine doing it all yourself. I've done animation competitions. I did a 48-hour animation competition once by myself. That was a nightmare. I don't know that I'd ever do that again. But I don't know how you would do a whole game. That'd be hard in 24 hours. But a week is kind of nice, because then you got some time that you can actually plan, instead of, okay, here's 5 ideas. Which one do you like? Which one don't you like? Okay, we don't have time to talk about that. We'll just pick one. Which is how it was with the first time we did Ludum Dare. And I have a friend named Todd who well, in the past at least, he's done a lot of Ludum Dares, and that's how I found out about it. And he's made some amazing things I think by himself too, but he's much better at this stuff than I am. So, well, that's an interesting tree that I don't know how I feel about. Maybe we'll just give this one a plain old base. Yeah, that's too boring. What else can we do with this? We could put a hole in it. That'll make it a little more interesting. There we go. Okay. I still got to give it a little bit of a bottom. That reminds me of a Kirby tree. Dev says, all solo, my developer art hurts my eyes, so I had to take a break. Yes, I hear that. My artist code always hurts my eyes, and then it never works. So I feel your pain there. Yeah, you know what you're good at, and that's a good thing. But the nice thing about it is, you can have a game with bad art that is still fun. It is very difficult to have a very pretty game that doesn't actually function. So if you're going to pick one, I say being able to actually, develop it is not a bad thing. Art can always be improved, right? So you just get a really good game concept going, people will enjoy it, and then you can put some pretty graphics on and go from there. All right, so let me save again, because again, I keep forgetting to save. Okay, so I got some ideas out of the way in order to continue along the process, and now I can start thinking about, what works, what doesn't work, that sort of thing. Let me bring in my character, because that will probably help too. The character art is not final, so FYI, it may not end up looking like this, but for the time being, I've gotten it closer to what it will probably end up being. So here is our little panda, and we'll sit him down next to a tree. That way I can get an idea of what might fit his style best. Oops, he's very small. No, that's fine. He'll just be a little pixelated, but it's all right. Okay. So this panda is one of the player character things. Like I said, it's physics based, so he'll be more falling around instead of walking around, but you can kind of get an idea of what it'll be like. So I kind of like him next to the first one. That one's all right. I don't think this last one really fits the style of the game, but it might. I don't know. We'll hide him for a second. And what am I trying to do here? I need to shrink stuff down again. So whoops, that was not the right one. There you go. If anybody has not been here before, generally I'd run these things for about an hour and then stop, because that's about as long as I find people interested in paying attention to things and whatever. Nin says, pandas are awesome. 1, pandas are awesome. 2, that roly panda looks adorable. Well, thank you. I hope that the roly panda looks adorable, because it took me far too long to design him and things. If you watch some of the previous streams, you can see the process of creation on the panda. I went from rough sketches on paper to the digital art you see before you, and that worked out pretty well. Okay, so let's try triangle trees, which will generally, triangles are going to be more pine trees, but I'm going to check and turn it into let's try 3 different shaped triangle tree. Or we could try an upside down tree, which is stupid and nonsense, but hey, concept art doesn't have to be right. It could just be weird. Okay. Maybe we'll make this like a wine glass tree, because why not? So another thing about this game is, well, first let me talk about Mr. Fishy for a second. Mr. Fishy is a dark humor, choose your own adventure style game. It's pretty short, but it's full of just existential jokes. And I mean, the game is called The Death of Mr. Fishy, so you can kind of guess that Mr. Fishy doesn't survive the game. But my mother is not going to like that game. I can tell you that right now. So what I wanted to do was make our second game a little more E for everyone / widely accessible. And as a result, I'm trying really hard to make the art and the general feel of the game not super weird like this, because this one here is pretty weird. And I don't want it to distract from the core of the game. But I really like weird art. Or not even weird art. I don't necessarily like weird art. I like unique art. Like, I like this weird tree. And so it's just not the right fit for this game, but oh my gosh, wait until third game. The third game, I'm going back to weird stuff because I just enjoy it. It's fun. You get to stretch your imagination. Actually, since we're going to do the Ludum Dare coming up next week, um, that's a great opportunity to do weird stuff because uh, everybody, everybody who plays a game jam game kind of expects that it's not going to be perfect, so you can get away with a lot more random things, and it's a lot of fun. Highly recommended. Okay, so here we have 3 other kind of trees. And what else can we do? What if we could combine some shapes? Maybe that would do something. Let's try that. Again, we might be getting not too weird, I guess. Yeah, maybe it would be too weird. It's different. The nice thing about doing concept art like this and just trying stuff is that you never know later on when it's going to become useful. So, actually, Dev, like you were saying with your developer art, just keep trying stuff because you never know when something will just work, and then later on you'll be like, oh, hey, I can use that for something down the road. So I mean, this tree that I'm working on now is probably not the right fit for this game, but a future game it might be great. I don't know. Give it some weird roots too. And it's it's positive. So this game that I'm working on now has at least 6 different worlds, probably with 10 or so puzzles in each world. That's where it is right now. I have no idea if that's what it's going to be in the end, but I'd like the worlds to have slightly different visual elements. So right now these trees would probably be designed for the first world, which is more of like a hilly meadow kind of a scene. But if I do some weird trees, then it's possible that later worlds could have some more unique elements like the weird upside down wine glass tree or something. I don't know. Not going to rule it out. Okay, so let's do some square trees, and then we will sit and think for a minute about what's working and what's not working. And if we want to head in a certain direction or how we want to handle that. Do a trapezoidal tree. Generally speaking, if you can, I talked a little bit about this while we were designing the Panda earlier, if you can do some sort of unique shape, it's probably going to end up being more interesting. The thing is, right now, I shouldn't really necessarily be shooting for super interesting because this is supposed to be in the background, and the backgrounds technically should be kind of subtle and not super dramatic. It looks like a person holding up a giant block. You stick a little head on here, be like, oh, my back. Oh, anyway, we'll get rid of that. I could make all the trees in the background tortured souls. That's perfect for this super accessible game. All right, I kind of like that. It reminds me a little bit of a lamp, but it's kind of got a nice I belong in the background fading. But we could even add some maybe berries to it or something. I don't know. Make it an apple tree. I don't like that last one. Something to think about. And then this one, let's add some more. Let's turn it around. Add some more random shapes. We got comments. Inset says, what kind of input device are you using? Wacom tablet thing / mouse. Definitely not a mouse. If I could draw this well with a mouse, I would be living pretty. No, I have a Cintiq, which is one of those super fancy Wacom tablets, or Wacom, however you want to say it, that you draw directly on the screen. I originally got that for animation purposes, because 2D animation is far easier on a digital device than it is on paper, even though I love it on paper. Yes, it is the fancy one. So I have not the giant Cintiq, not the small one and not the giant one. I'm pretty sure that there's a middle one now. There originally was just a big one and a small one, and then they released a super big one. I do not have the super big one. That's like, you know, the size of a wall. I have just the good old-fashioned first large Cintiq. It was stupidly expensive, but I will say this: I don't spend money on much. Like I don't make money, so that, you know, it helps to not spend it. But of all of the things that I have purchased for my art, getting a Cintiq was probably the best. It has saved me so many hours, and it has improved my skill set just because of ease of use. Like, nothing will improve your skill set more than practice, but it makes me want to practice, so I'll say it like that. So if there's any other artists watching this and you're thinking, boy, I think a Cintiq would be cool, but I don't know if it's worth the money, yes, it is definitely worth the money. I've never found a tool that was more worth the money than this giant monitor that you can draw on. Nowadays, you can get other things not by Wacom that are cheaper, and you can also get things like iPads and Apple Pencils, and that's great. Like, I'm super excited that more people will have a chance to draw directly on screens. I have not yet found anything that was as good as a Cintiq, and that may be just me being biased, but I just adore this little device, or this big device. It has been definitely the best tool that I've ever purchased other than pencils and papers. So, highly recommended. It is one of, I often joke, if the house was burning down and I could only save a handful of things, I would probably run into the office and save the Cintiq. I know that's stupid because it's big and bulky and I could just go buy another one, but it's just precious to me. So pairs that I have drawn a pillow tree for some reason while I'm talking. I don't like it, so I'm not going to use my pillow tree. But now we have a bunch of different concepts, and I think that that's useful because we can mess with things from here. So what I'll do is save one more time as a new file. And what do we got? 536. So that's good. We can start tweaking some of these, and then we'll wrap it up after that. So it's, you know, it's not too long of a stream. It's a nice, manageable one. So let's grab these two and shrink them one more time. Put them here. And now we will figure out, let's combine, no wait, do I want to combine the layers? Yes, let's do that. Shrink all layers back down. All right. So, if we were to number these off, this is 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this is 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So now we have numbers on them. I will take an impromptu poll. Does anybody have any particular favorites or ones that they specifically don't like? Because I have found doing these streams that it's very useful to chat with other people who are here because then I don't have to make all the decisions myself. And I will also chime in, but I hate to bias anybody. So if anybody has any comments now, and if you're watching this on YouTube later as the recorded version, I apologize. You don't get to chime in, but you can come to the next stream and then you can chime in. But if you have any thoughts on which ones you like and which ones you don't, feel free to let me know, because that makes life a little easier on mine. Ninsage says that he likes 14, which would be this one. So Ninsage is in green. I will put a little green star on this one as a fan. Actually, I'll put a little green heart on that one, because then I can use an X for I don't like this one, if there's any I don't like. And Ninsage says if I were to pick a least favorite, it would be 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The weird one. All right, so not a fan of the weird one. Well, there's a couple weird ones, but that one is definitely strange. See, I kind of like the concept of that one, but I understand it's not well designed and it would need a lot of work. And it's not right for this game anyway, so that works out. Cool. Well, I appreciate the feedback. So I also really like, I'm going to give myself the color pink today in one of those moods. I also really like that tree. So I'll keep that one. I like the idea of this one, but it's not quite where I'd want it to be. I don't like the pillow tree, so I'll get rid of that one. This one won't fit for the game, so I can't use that really. And then I kind of like this little one in the back there. Okay, so I got some things to play with. So then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I will erase all the ones that we have not discussed and are not huge fans of. Save that. One of these days I have to go through and clean up all of my file things, because anytime I do a stream, I'm just saving random versions so that later on I can go back if I need to. But honestly, I never go back, so it's not great. So we'll get rid of these. I'm going to, last minute, also keep 12, because there's aspects of 12 that I don't dislike, and I'll let that one stay too. I should make this eraser bigger, because that will make life easier. Get rid of these. All right. Now we have something to mess with, and put the eraser back at the size it was. Which now I don't remember which eraser I had. That one. Okay. So I will move this guy over so we have room to work. And then let's try some variations on these guys. Okay. So if we took the square tree again, we'll try what do we want to do here? So the square tree is already in. So let me analyze what's going on with square tree. So we have a pretty decent shape at the top, and then the other interesting thing about this is that the lower, the trunk part is kind of gnarled and it's got some angles in it, which certainly makes things more visually interesting, generally speaking. So if we kept some of that aspect, let me do a general flow of the trunk, and then we'll go from there. Just keep messing with it until we get the trunk that we're looking for. So the neat thing about this is that the Panda also has kind of some of that little bit of an angle sort of thing going on. So it would be useful for if other things had that too. And that might be too, oh, no, that was not the right eraser, I guess. This eraser. Oh, big. So I can probably and the proportions of this are off, which you can see. This part is too equal to that part. So we gotta tweak that, but that's an easy fix digitally. Thank you, technology, for allowing us to make horrific mistakes without paying for it too much. So see, that's a much better proportion, more akin to that first one. So the neat thing about the square trees is that I could do those and they can stack very nicely. Like you can make big ones and little ones, and you can have different trunks and things. I'll look like feet. I don't mean them to be that way, but anyway. So I can make some different shapes and trunks, and they can be, I mean, I can almost do like a whole forest of these if I wanted to, without having it be totally repetitive, or it would do well to fade into the background like that, you know. So I could go ahead and, if this one was slightly shaded in or something, then that would probably make for a nice background. So I like that idea, and those I'm a fan of. So save that. One more file into the pile. All right, so that'll kind of give us an idea of what we're thinking about with those. And then let me mess around with the oval one and see how that would go. So what we could do is, the oval ones could not, well, I mean, I could still overlap the oval ones, but it might be nice to have them not overlap. And if I didn't overlap the oval ones, then they could be a little more what's the word I'm looking for? They could be more like a pattern in the background, because they would all be at different levels and sizes. And so rather than having it maybe be a little more dimensional, these might work better for farther away, because if these were on a hilltop somewhere, then here, I'll grab those and put them on a hilltop for a second. They would end up being nice silhouettes on a hilltop. And so if we had them there, and then had the background where you've got like a hill, and then the foreground was over here, and that's going to be a lot darker. We have our platform or something. Then we can move our panda onto the platform, and those trees in the background there, they just kind of, there's some ugly tangents there, but whatever. They would kind of just fade into the background more. So I kind of like the round ones for that purpose. So those aren't bad either. I'll get rid of all of that. Make those guys back to their original size. All right, so we got some things going there. I think where I'm leaning right now, save one more time, I'll turn on my webcam again and we can chat for a minute before I wrap up. What am I doing? I'm turning on a webcam. Okay, I think that's it. There we go. Cool. So I think what we've got going on here is that it may be the rounded trees would be useful for the opening level world that is much more open and grassy plains, and we'll just stick those in the background. I'll try that out a little bit. Hi. And the square trees might do better for like a secondary or some other level where you're either in a forest or maybe more of a jungle environment, things that are overlapping and more, I hate to say oppressive, but visually oppressive. That might be better with the square trees that have like that crooked trunk because it would lend itself to a darker feel, I think, than the wide open plains. So I think that's a good start. So from here, the next step will be to probably do one or two of the trees in more of a final form, or just start sticking them in the backgrounds. I'm not sure which. I haven't nailed down the background yet, so we're kind of gonna try that out first and see which one works, and then start plugging some trees into it. The reason that I wanted to do some trees, as I think I said earlier, but if I didn't, forgive me, it is because the backgrounds themselves, without any sort of foliage in it, it's just a little too barren and too graphic. I wanted to soften it up a little bit, and I thought trees would help. InSage says, trees! This isn't even my final form. That's correct. These are going to turn into some Super Saiyan trees, and then even that won't be their final form. Yeah, they're going to just be like crazy aggressive, screaming all the time for hours. Trees. It'll be great. It's going to be the final form tree. No, maybe some future game, but not this one. So that's what I'm going to do from here, and we'll go from there. So I appreciate everybody coming. Tomorrow I'm going to do the second stream for the week at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and then I may do one Saturday night, but I'm not sure because Saturdays are always kind of up in the air. But tomorrow I'm going to be working on background design for like a menu. So we're going to have the main elements of the menu. You'll have the logo and the buttons to continue on, like a start screen or whatever. And then in the background, I want to have some sort of pattern that maybe moves, just to add some visual interest. So tomorrow we're going to be working in a program called Affinity Designer. It is a vector-based program that I've done. I actually did the inking of the Panda in that program. So tomorrow we'll work in Affinity Designer, and we'll just do some icon design and see what we can put in the background, play with some colors, maybe just have ourselves a grand old time. And we'll go from there. So thanks for coming, everybody, and appreciate the help on the trees and chiming in on which ones worked and which ones didn't. And then I guess we'll catch you either tomorrow or during the next stream. So have a good one. Bye.